Greetings, Dr. Ryan. Keith Green here for your historic preservation class, submitting my final report. So I've just been plagued with technical difficulties and whatnot, so this is what I've got for you, okay? So my report, what I've been looking into was the Ile de Jean Charles, the tribe that had to move. And it just really became so much more expansive than just that one tribe, and how the Inflation Reduction Act from Biden's administration was going to affect them. What I realized was that was really minimizing the scope. First, let me say why I think historic preservation is important. It's because yeah, it's true that we definitely learn from our mistakes. That's really important to know about history, so we don't, do this, do people wrong again. However, it seems like there's this terrible pattern in the United States that there's this group of people who we just keep screwing over, and that's the indigenous population. They've been misidentified so many times. Indians, American Indians, Native Americans, to call them anything American is strange to me because of the takeover that by colonialization. So between the European takeover, completely smashing let's say the history of a culture, and this is where historic preservation really comes into play for me, because I'm not thinking necessarily of, I'm thinking more of an anthropological sense instead of buildings and what architecture. Architecture is great. Can't wait to go visit old world Europe and see like the old school architecture. But the cultural stuff is really what could be erased from history just as easily, because we say that the winners write the history, so do the oppressors. And like I was saying, the indigenous people of this continent here, they're just they have been oppressed for so long. It started with us saying, white colonizers, Europeans, which eventually evolved into what we are today, Americans. We took their land. So you would think, in the spirit of reparations or just a good sense of morale, that more would be done now to try and help preserve their culture. And we're seeing that it's not. So basically, when I grew up in the South, so there's a lot of Southern white history. So what I ended up being raised on was that there were savages. The Indian population were savages. So were black people, and all the banks are run by the Jews. I mean, it's just ridiculous things that we've been taught in Southern history because of who's actually writing that history. I learned more about slave owners and their plantations and the business they brought to the South than I learned about, other important national leaders like Ulysses S. Grant or even George Washington. Lincoln, oh boy, they don't even want to mention Abraham Lincoln down here. So my point in all that is that, we've got this Eurocentric style of telling, this Eurocentric themed of history in all these Southern in all these books that are written for classes in Southern history. Look, we're seeing this over in Florida right now as well. Where they just really don't want to be taught about other cultures. They're like, let's just keep it white and keep it Christian. And so that was like the original say like the original sin of that the Europeans committed against the indigenous population was, taking their land, pillaging them, um, and then burying their culture, making them look like savages, and trying to bring them to the light of, white Christianity. Um, so it is really important. There are things that we're still learning today that was buried by Eurocentric history. All right. So it is very, very important. This is why historic preservation is important to me, so that cultures don't lose their stories, their heritage, right? Okay. Now, when you've got something like the case of Ile de Jean Charles, Ile de Jean, Isle de Jean, um, you want to we want to point a finger, but it's usually so that we could have somebody pay for the solution. But in this case, uh, we just don't have any one group of people to point the finger at. Um, what we're looking at, and I know you're already familiar with the case, so I'm not, to go into all the details. We've been losing land mass. The entirety of the world. One of my passions is actually coastal engineering. Um, I was supposed to have gone to school for that in the Netherlands, but instead got a little sick and COVID and whatnot. So I'm here doing urban planning in New Orleans. Now, it was a good backup for me, being that I'm from here, and growing up with the coastal erosion. See, we used to, my family used to have a fishing camp down in Port Fouchon. So, to watch the beaches and the channels and all the places we used to go play around at, slowly disappear into the water. Um, that is a disheartening feeling. And so now that was just our fishing camp. So now think about if it's somebody's home, their tribal land. Now we're talking about a group of people who have been continuously pushed off their lands. Um, Ile de Jean is one of the, I want to say one of the last places. It's gotten down to where like 2% or something of the original tribal land actually still belongs to that same tribe, but not necessarily that same tribe. They've been combined as well. So what used to just be the Choctaws or the Biloxi's um, wound up combining. So what I mean is that the Ile Charles or any other Indian reservation, it used to be just one tribe. Well, all these tribes that got kicked out of their homes across the entirety of the United States. Now there's just like 2% of their original land left, from what they used to own, which used to be like, everything. I mean, and we're not just talking, it's all of North America, it's Central America. Um, so there's a question that you've got me asking, Dr. Ryan, just about all the time now is who cares? Um, well, it's all a matter of perspective. You're not going to get people to. I mean, it's incredibly difficult to get people to care. So what we're looking at in something like the coastal erosion and is that why should people care? Um, because this is an example of something that is that's going to affect everybody who lives on a coast. So that's who should care, is everybody who lives on the coast. So imagine that, is that, you've got your family land, and we're going to see a lot of this when the generational plantations are starting to go underwater. We're going to finally, when it's the white people with the money who are starting to get affected the most, or more, that's when we're going to actually finally see this uproar about it. And about what? Well, it's what all has affected the coastal erosion in a place like the Ile de Jean. So manipulation of the course of the Mississippi River. All right, can we do anything about that now, though? Okay, no. I mean, we could perhaps no longer alter the course, but the damage has been done there. We've got offshore drilling. Now, that was a biggie because with the Inflation Reduction Act, that increases the Gulf Coast offshore drilling. That's the opposite ass direction we want to go. When you get so many pollutants in the water, that just adds up to where people can't even fish in the damn water anymore. You should start thinking that things should be done differently. Now, the way this doesn't affect you and I and that type of way. We're like, oh, we can't go fishing in the places we used to go fish. No, but when you've got indigenous tribes like the Biloxi Choctaw down there, who like that's how they put food on the table. They physically. I'm not talking about going and earning money and going to Walmart or the grocery store. No, like they fish. I really wanted a retirement camp down in like coastal Louisiana, but with the BP oil spill really messing up, all this really good, this sportsman's paradise that we've had in Louisiana, which the indigenous tribes have really made well for themselves off of that with what they've been provided. Climate change was the last. So we've got the change of the Mississippi River. This is the oil platform drilling, and then something that's even more difficult to deal with right now, but goes hand in hand with the oil platform drilling, is climate change. And this is why and how it's going to issues like the coastal erosion at Ile de Dean Charles is going to affect everyone, because we're not just talking about trying to historically protect a culture. We have to learn from our mistakes. So what is our big mistake right now? We humans, okay, we did not do enough to protect our coastlines. Indigenous tribes are being affected by that. Well, also fishing communities are being largely affected by this. Now, if we don't rectify this situation, more communities are going to get lost. So this is a huge example when 100 years from now, when we continue the conversation about historic preservation and we've possibly lost New Orleans, and historians say what could have been done differently, and a bunch of us who might still be around or whatever are going to look back at the Ile de Jean Charles. I mean, and they're going to look at that and go, well, we saw it coming. So, lessons to be learned in historic preservation. I really certainly appreciate your class this semester, and I hope to take more from you. I apologize for the lack of technology and the amateur way in which this was done or whatnot. But again, thank you so much for your time and your knowledge this semester, Dr. Ryan. Happy holidays to you and your family.